Chapter 3 Sand Capital, Ryoma, recently promoted ninja. The Wind Daimyo's seat of power was, despite ruling over the land of wind, not called Wind Capital. Its full name was actually Capital Magnificent with rooftops of gold, walls of marble, and sands of coral amidst a bounty of 4 heavenly winds. Most people simply referred to it as Sand Capital, or Wind Capital, for short. This was a fine-worthy crime to do in the presence of the daimyo. The capital sat at the mouth of the largest gulf in Wind Country. This gulf, salty as it was, regularly receives rainfall from the South Nanmen Ocean, which fed a great deal of basic agriculture in the region, and served as a strong naval position from which the Wind Daimyo could maintain control over trade and agriculture in the various scattered rivers, which started in desert mountains and flowed to the sea. Food and fresh water was what determined power in the land of wind, and the Wind Daimyo maintained a state monopoly on both. Ninja from Saunagakure were here to fulfill the request of Lady Ikeda Yuko, he explained calmly, raising the official mission request up and allowing the guard at the massive timber and sandstone gates to inspect. The guard certainly didn't look happy to see either of them, or the symbols they carried, but did little more than grunt as he read over the page. If this was a more confidential mission, then he'd flash the appropriate seal, wait for them to send a message to the client, wait for the client to send a message back, and the details of the task at hand would be kept entirely secret. If this was a very confidential mission, he'd show up at the client's room, bypassing all security to get in and to leave. That was pretty hard for him to do, though, so he was glad this was a low confidentiality mission. Nodding, the guard handed the page back with a stern look. "Please wait. Samurai will be called to escort you while in the capital." Oh, what a daring abbreviation. Ryoma's lips quirked in an amusement under his white veil, but he nodded placidly at the words. It was just a bad idea to let ninja wander around your center of civilization on their own. Normally, ninja villages resolved this issue by assigning shadow escorts to watch over the foreigners and take them out if they tried something funny. The capitals and other notable residences usually just cut the fat and assigned an outright samurai escort. A samurai, after all, could usually just murder a ninja from such a position. They were very similar to ninja, in that they could use chakra to enhance and supplement their abilities. They were very different from ninja in that they skipped all those stealth, utility, and etc. applications of chakra and jumped straight to move fast and murder someone applications in their education. Rich enough to afford the best arms and armor, trained in specifically kicking ass from birth, and having the right to call up large masses of commoners to join their kill this guy operations, samurai were very scary. And you usually couldn't beat one in a straight fight. Which was the trick of it. What kind of idiot ninja fights fair and square? 2 men clad in intimidating plates of steel and carrying swords on their belts approached. Their faces were obscured beneath wide-visored helmets, and their shoulders square. Their plates carried the honors of the Sand Capital, and their glares could be felt even through the helms. Samurai, after all, did not like ninja for many reasons. The most prominent one being that ninja were slowly replacing them in their various honorable positions of authority. Ninjas cost money, sure, but didn't have any of that pesky legal authority or traditional rights that the daimyo had to give the samurai, making them an attractive option. Given another 10 or 15 years, the only real notable samurai left would be found in Iron Country, assuming nothing changes. Iron Country was a shogunate, after all. They weren't about to phase out their samurai anytime soon. "Honorable samurai, here to escort us?" Ryoma asked politely, performing a small greeting bow and gesture as he spoke. The one on the left grunted. "Correct. Let us get this over with, ninja." Ryoma nodded, ignoring Mari's little bristle at the disrespect in the samurai's tone. He sent her a sharp look in warning, before beginning to walk forwards past the gates and into the city streets proper. "We are responding to the request of Lady Ikeda Yuko and require guidance to the Ikeda compound. We will be in your care." Kozane, take the lead," the samurai commanded his apparent junior, stepping around and behind the 2 of them to watch their backs. The junior nodded, turning around and starting to move through along the clay brick roads and towards their destination. Samurai were a prickly bunch around Ninja, and it really wasn't worth trying to be friendly with them. That usually just made them more suspicious of you. It was easiest to just be professional and polite, something they could understand and regard with reasonable amounts of disdain. Much of the trip was spent in silence, occasionally glancing around at various people and mercantile activities of the capital as they were escorted from the outer gates, past the inner gates, then the shell gates, and into the section of the city reserved for the higher nobility. Not the daimyo himself, though. He was past the last set of gates, the pearl gates, in the innermost section of the city. True to the fancy names, the capital was actually a fairly beautiful city. He had no qualms in admitting that. Soon enough, they were at the much smaller gates of the inner compound walls of the Ikeda clan. The job page was shown off to the guards at the gate, who sent word inside, who eventually sent word back to the gates that they were allowed inside, and the samurai who had been escorting them were allowed to walk off and return to whatever they were doing before. All very bureaucratic and formal in process. Tch! Those guys were stiff, Mari complained quietly, glancing back at the roads as they were led into the compound to greet the client. It's understandable. We're ninja, after all. Ryoma waved off in an unconcerned manner. They're samurai. They have a lot of reasons to dislike us. I'm pretty sure that one in the back was staring at my butt, Mari grumbled, placing her hands on her hips. It's understandable. It's a nice butt, after all. Ryoma restrained his urge to smirk, seeing his partner sputter and stumble at his blunt statement. The guard escorting them had a little smirk and a jolt of laughter at the antics, turning around and gesturing at the table and kneel mats of the greeting room. Lady Ikeda will be with you shortly. Please take a seat. Ryoma nodded absent-mindedly, walking over to one of the seats, while reaching up to remove his broad straw hat. He let it fall back, hanging from his neck by a little string and revealing his fluffy brown hair to the world. The veil was really more like a bandana than anything else, if he was being honest. It stayed where it was on the lower half of his face. Mari set her immense iron fan to the side before taking her own kneel upon the mat. They had actual chairs here, he could see them in the hallways, but the kneel mats were traditional. He could also see another guard watching them from a slightly subtle position, but that was fine and expected here. This place is downright fancy, huh? Mari commented idly, looking about the room and the various decorations on display. They certainly didn't skimp on the decor. This room is about as big as my entire apartment, Ryoma observed, measuring the length and width of the place and comparing it to his living space. What? Mari let out a shocked noise at that, looking at him in an aghast manner. The entire thing? My place isn't exactly big, but it's at least twice as big as this room. My rent is really cheap, he nodded in a self-satisfied manner. It's pretty spacious for one guy and his equipment, so I don't need to upgrade anytime soon. You live in a little apartment, you eat the supply rations, what the heck do you spend your paychecks on? I spend some of it on my puppets. Ryoma tapped his side, reminding her of his expensive hobby. The rest of it goes into my savings, just in case. Blech. Mari leaned forward in a despairing manner. I can't believe it. I'm working with a monk. She grumbled quietly to herself for the next few minutes as they waited for their client to arrive. Yeah, hello, a cheery woman's voice called out from the hall, bringing their attention to the doorway. Their client, or at least a woman matching her picture and description, walking through the doorway, stepping into the room. Simultaneously, he and Mari rose and performed a polite bow, which she waved off and lowered herself into a seated position. It was a somewhat inelegant movement, if he was being honest. Lady Ikeda Yuko was a fairly average woman, all things considered. Dark-haired, dark eyes, rounded face, tiny amount of tanning from the blazing light common to wind country. She stood about 5'1", and, by eye estimates, she was about 130 pounds. Enough that she had a noticeable heft, but He had seen bloated caricatures of obesity in his past life. She was honestly fine by comparison to such. Of course, when compared to the dainty and slight ideal of courtly noble lady, she was significantly diverged. Noble ladies were vicious about pecking orders. It was pretty surprising that she was so chipper, with that in mind. Lady Ikeda Yuko? We are the jonin from Saunagakure you've requested. Oh, so prompt and polite. She waved a hand at that, smiling at the two of them. You're early, you know. I wasn't expecting anyone for at least 2 more days. We presumed to be early, just in case, Ryoma responded. We can depart whenever you're ready. Oh, well, not till tomorrow, how about? I haven't quite had all my things packed up yet. She gave a little laugh at that. I can't go all the way to tea country with nothing, after all. Understandable. The contract didn't specify a means of arrival. Do you have a route in mind already? Oh, I think we'll be walking. She nodded in a determined way at that. Up through river country, then we'll meet up with one of my old friends in fire country, and then down to tea country. On foot? Mari asked, with a faintly surprised tone. That's quite the distance to walk. Lady Ikeda, are you sure? The noble lady nodded firmly, then brought a hand up to brush a lock of hair behind one of her ears. It'll have to be. I could certainly afford to hire a boat, but I'm afraid I need the exercise. I can't show up to the Golden Tea Festival looking like this. She gestured at herself, a slightly flustered expression on her face. She coughed into a fist before continuing. Only to tea country, though. I think I'll be quite sick of walking by the end of the festival. I'll come back by boat. I see, Ryoma replied in a manner that didn't express his opinion one way or another. Will we be travelling with anyone else, or will it just be the 3 of us? Until meeting your friend in fire country, that is. Oh, not many. She waved. Just a handful of my servants and a cart for all my things. You know how it is. I can't exactly carry all that by myself, and it would be downright improper to make my ninja guards do it. Most people meant it would be harder to defend them all, just adding complications to the job. He wasn't upset. He had been expecting something like this from the moment he heard the client was a noble. He was glad that he had packed extra for this. This trip was probably going to take a month by the looks of it. 200,000 ryo in total payout. The village got a 15% cut of 30,000. Then the pay was split 2 ways between himself and his partner for a final of 85,000 ryo. A koku of rice was about 330 pounds, and worth anywhere from 50 to 80,000 ryo, depending on where you brought it from. Therefore, his cut for this next job was going to be a bit over 1 koku, no matter how you cut it. For comparative context, a bowl of cheap ramen was about 200 to 300 ryo. This was enough to buy 280 to 425 bowls of ramen from one of those neat little open-air stands. That was enough to cover his bills for quite a while. Probably enough to fund his replacement bolters, and then some extra left out to put into savings. It wasn't bad, all things considered. These thoughts and calculations flowed through his mind easily as they walked along an immense desert road towards the north and away from the capital. The road was one of many that had been commissioned by one of the previous daimyos to facilitate trade through his country, an immense stretch of hardened stone pulled up from the ground by earth jutsu and condensed into a sturdy platform for carriages and whatnot to move along. Famously, it was that daimyo who declared, "The age of the samurai, of sword and bloodshed, is over. This is a time of trade and prosperity. And behold the shinobi who have enabled that. Behold the wonders they have erected at my command." Needless to say, he was not very popular among his retainers. The current daimyo, a nephew of the previous, promised to not place his ninja before his own samurai. This was very popular, and a brief and bloody coup later put him in the seat of power. A daimyo who has thus far kept his samurai happy, not by not hiring ninja, but instead just hiring ninja from another country. It was expected that he would ease up eventually and go back to hiring sauna ninja soon enough, and everyone would put this business behind them. Ryoma knew that this policy was going to be lasting another 10 years or so, at minimum. The economy of their mercenary village wasn't going to recover anytime soon. He didn't know what happened to the daimyo in canon, but he suspected it was fairly lethal. All of this over a random boast about a new road many years ago. It was a pretty nice road, though, all things considered, lined in date trees for shade and defended from errant sands and erosions by layers of small sidewalls. It was curious that this particular job even reached Saunagakure I in the first place. He wasn't about to pry directly, but he was certainly thinking about it. "Are you okay, Lady Ikeda?" one of the servants asked from a bit behind him. The heavy breathing and faint scent of sweat that occasionally blew up from behind them told him that she was struggling. Just a bit. "We can rest if you need it," Mari offered kindly, raising a hand from her position on the flank. I'm fine," the noble lady wheezed out. He turned to look back to see her struggling, gratefully taking the offered water from her servant and gulping it down. She was wearing one of her travel dresses, which looked a lot like a normal dress, but with one less layer and a big fancy hat to shade her head. Briefly, he calculated how much water they had versus how much distance they had traveled, and made the executive decision to help out. "There's a secret ninja technique, to preserve stamina," Ryoma began with a specific tone of voice. "Would you like for me to teach it to you?" Ninja technique?" she gasped out, looking at him with a slightly skeptical expression. "And you'll teach it to me?" "Yep," he replied with a slightly grave tone, stepped forward and reached up to gesture at his face. The noble lady swallowed in wary anticipation. "Press your tongue against the roof of your mouth." She did so, inhaling, then exhaling, with face scrunched up in concentration. "Uh-huh?" she questioned, tongue still firmly planted against the roof of her mouth. "That's it," he finished, dropping his hand.
That's it!
Lady Ikeda, her servants, and Mari all yelled at him. A regular comedy routine. They were naturals at it. He huffed in amusement and nodded. "Yep, that's it," he shrugged. "It's not a very hard technique, but it should help somewhat. Just focus on the breathing." "Ha! Being teased by my ninja guard like this?" the noble lady sighed in a rueful manner. "It is a genuine technique, Lady Ikeda," Ryoma argued, stepping back to his watch position. "Is that how you're staying cool, Mr. Jonin?" she asked in an amused tone. Oh, no. I use ninja magic whenever I need to stay cool." "Show me," she demanded, a little smile on her sweaty face as she waved a hand. Ryoma wasn't really hot right now. The shade from the date trees was more than enough to keep him at a comfortable temperature, but customer satisfaction was important. He went through the hand seals required, shaping the requisite chakra, then unleashing the jutsu. A bubble of swirling airs surrounded him. "Ta-da!" he declared, spreading out his arms and then doing a little spin. "Stand next to me," she commanded. "I can't defend you effectively from right there." "I don't care. It's entirely too hot." Mari rolled her eyes with an amused smile.